Day 2 of the Democratic National Convention. We want to give you a live look inside the United Center, where the ceremonial roll call will take place tonight to nominate Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Also tonight, more speakers will take the stage, among them two people who are no strangers to the White House, former First Lady Michelle Obama and the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday night. I'm Priscilla Casper.
And I'm Corey Smith. If you missed the speeches last night, we have you covered. Our team is live in Chicago, beginning with highlights from night one with NBC 10's Glenn Jones. Hello, Glenn.
Corey and Priscilla, hello. There's always a lot going on in Chicago, but this week the city is completely packed with Democrats. Everything's turned up an extra notch. All of those folks here to support Kamala Harris, and they know their candidate is going to make history later this week. Thursday, she'll formally accept the party's nomination for president. She'll be the first woman of color to lead a major party's ticket for president. She briefly stepped out onto the stage last night, shocking the packed crowd. But beyond saying hello and paying tribute to President Biden, Harris was mostly unseen. Night one had a lot of big speeches. Hillary Clinton, the first woman nominated to the top of a major party's ticket, spoke to the crowd very passionately. As she has in the past, Clinton mentioned the glass ceiling, a popular metaphor used to talk about what female leaders need to do to finally break through.
We're not just electing a president, we're uplifting our nation. We're opening the promise of America wide enough for everyone. Together, we've put a lot of cracks in the highest, hardest glass ceiling.
She really riveted the crowd. Also speaking last night, New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Team USA basketball head coach Steve Kerr, who of course is sometimes a foe to us in Boston, and President Biden. Biden made reference to his decision to step aside and commented on reports he's angry about it.
It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I love my country more. And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down, that's not true.
Here's a look at who you can expect to hear from tonight. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Kamala Harris's husband, second gentleman Doug Emhoff, and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. And you can have a spirited argument about which Obama is more popular. I'm not alone here in Chicago. I'm joined by NBC 10 political reporter Matt Pritchard. He's inside the United Center. Matt, you've been catching up with some Massachusetts delegates, and I know that you started early out there on the street, even though it was a long night.
Yeah, that's right, Glenn. We caught up in the elevator briefly at the hotel as we set out to talk with a bunch of different delegates all across the city as they are going to their different events, their different breakfasts, and their different convention responsibilities that they have to go through. But while a lot of this is centered on just pushing forward the Democratic profile into the nation ahead of the election, of course, policy also comes up as well. And in Massachusetts, the migrant issue, that is something that we talk about a lot. We know the shelters are full. And oftentimes our leaders in Massachusetts talk about the fact that they want to see more action from Congress. They want to see more action from the Biden-Harris administration. With that said, they think Kamala Harris is the person to address the immigration issue for the next 4 years. Amongst the cheers, chants, and political fanfare, a return to the realities and challenges facing the country. States like Massachusetts straining to provide shelter to migrants arriving in the Commonwealth, most recently adding a 5-day stay limit to encourage people into more permanent housing.
We don't have an unlimited checkbook or unlimited capacity.
Governor Maura Healey has served as a surrogate for both President Biden and now Kamala Harris, but in her gubernatorial role has called on Washington to step up and do more to help states. You talk all the time about how the federal government needs to do more. So what What would Kamala do?
Well, I think she'd do. First of all, she wanted Congress to act months ago to pass the law that would have tightened things up at the border, provided more resource, provided more agents, and made reforms to the system. Donald Trump said, no way, not now.
Now, putting the onus on Trump and Republicans coming up repeatedly.
The first thing Kamala Harris would do is reopen the bipartisan agreement that was reached between Democrats and Republicans.
Donald Trump killed that bill because he wanted to run on this issue rather than solve the problem.
But others in the State House and at Boston City Hall pointing to the need for action.
If we really want to solve the issue of migrant crisis and people coming to this country, we have to get better at our foreign policy with countries like Haiti, like Venezuela.
As a state legislator, we feel like everything's on our back. We want to make sure that the federal and the president is taking care of the state.
Now, while those policy conversations play out, we know tonight all eyes are going to be on that podium for the keynote speakers, that being former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Coming up tonight at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk with a few folks who know those two very well and get a preview of what we can expect to hear from the former first couple. Glenn, back to you.
All right, Matt, we look forward to that. Also rounding out our team here in Chicago is NBC 10 political commentator Sue O'Connell. You will hear from her coming up in the next half hour. She'll give us her thoughts on what kind of messaging we can expect from the Obama's speeches tonight. Priscilla, as I send it back to you, it was 20 years ago in Boston that we first saw President Obama. At that point, he wasn't even a U.S. senator, introducing himself to the country. He'll be back on stage at the DNC 20 years later.
Yeah, crazy to hear 20 years later. We're really looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Glenn, thanks so much. Be sure to stay with NBC 10 Boston for live network coverage tonight from the DNC. We will bring you former President Obama's address live starting at 10 o'clock.